Welcome and good morning, everyone, and a happy Lunar New Year, whether you're celebrating the year of the rabbit or the year of the cat. I am Katie Cartman, Director of Religious Education here at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you and invite you to fill out our visitor card so you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. Again, welcome to all. We are a church in many places, some of us here in the pews and some joining us on YouTube from home or wherever we might be. And our world is a different one than it was in early 2020. Our worship service has changed accordingly. We're giving people choices in the pews as to distance between families and whether or not they would like to continue masking. We've put a few offering baskets at the front and back of the sanctuary for people to drop off their offering throughout the service, rather than passing the plates. For those of us in the sanctuary this morning, let's take a moment to picture the dozens of friends, neighbors, and those we've not met yet who are taking part in this service on YouTube, either right now or later in the week as their schedules allow. Please remember to silence your cell phones. It's great to tweet out your favorite pieces. It's not so great when we're interrupted by 27 cell phones. Following the worship service, folks in the pews may head out to the gathering place for snacks and beverages. We've got a special celebration today that we'll be talking about more. And perhaps head out to the courtyard and playground to chat. We'll also have social time on Zoom, hosted by a volunteer whose name I have forgotten. Oh, actually, I think Marilyn's going to try to do it on site today. And a chance for you to gather in smaller groups to discuss the service and what's going on in your lives. And now, for our prelude.
Yeah. Go for it. That was amazing. Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Michelle LaGrave, the interim minister of this congregation. Our service this morning is about finding our center. and it is a part of the Soul Matters program, which means that hundreds of other UU congregations will also be exploring the same theme this month. The specific focus of this morning's service is about how our hobbies might help us to find our center. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. You belong here.
Our opening words are from the heart of What is it that calls you here, that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together.
Under the right circumstances, playing with fire is a delight. Imagine being gathered around a fire pit as the crackling flames invite us to sing, dance, and roast a marshmallow or two. Our chalice also invites us to play, although with ideas rather than marshmallows. The flame encourages us to explore who we are, who our neighbors are, and where we are on our spiritual journeys. Today, we light this chalice in the spirit of play. Let us trust the light to guide us in this hour and in the days to come, finding joy along the way. Let us rise together either in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, which is number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life, in the gray hymnal.
Strife.
When was the last time you were on a swing? Somebody in the front row said 15 minutes ago. For me, again, 5 minutes ago, yeah, it's a little longer. Anyway, for me it was about an hour ago. Anybody here been on a swing in the last month? A few people. A few people over the age of 15. I am very impressed. Let me point out that the swings at the back of the playground are sized for adults. So if after service you're like, I could use that dopamine hit, get out there. By the way, we're all good at taking turns. So, what does it feel like when you glide on a swing? Yes, sir? Luke? You can feel the air. Ben? Okay, get that a little louder. It feels like you're flying. Did Ruth raise her hand? Did Elena raise Ruth's hand? Yes, Ruth. Mm-hmm.
It feels like you're going sometimes on a roller coaster if you're going real fast.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like when you're going fast on a roller coaster, you got that momentum going on. What emotions do you feel when you're on a swing? Mm-hmm. Excited. Happy? Anybody else? It can nervous, yeah. Sometimes you get going a little far and you don't know what to, and then you remember, oh wait, I'm doing this on my own power. I can just stop pumping my legs. So the physics of swings and pendulums and all of those things, there's this force that we create, and then we come back and we go forward and we go back. And let me just say, this is a lot like the spirit of curiosity about learning, right? We get this idea in our heads and we're like, oh, I want to know more about. What might we want to know more about? The brain, okay. I saw a hand in back. Luke? Planets. Dragons. Ooh, thank you. My ears are still kind of stuffed up, so thank you guys for any help you can give me. We might want to know about the big questions of the universe. We might want to try to remember, who were the wives of King Henry? We get into these things where we want to know. And so we go and we find out, either asking a person a question or asking the internet or watching a PBS show. And as we get this new information, dopamine, we get this happy chemical in our brain that's like, woo! And then as that swing comes back, we pull it in and we go, hey, this is cool. What does this change about me? Who am I? Do I want to learn more about this? And we might decide, yes, pump our legs some more and learn more about it. Or we might say, this is kind of freaking me out. I think I'm going to slow down, back up, choose a different topic. And this is one of the things that makes humans so amazing, is this curiosity, this constant wanting to learn more. And then we can get another little boost of happy hormones when we want to share it with somebody else, right? You ever been so excited about something that you burst into the room and without really even any context, you say, hey, did you know that in the jungles of Vietnam, they have a really cool striped rabbit that nobody even knew existed until the 1990s? And then the other people in your lives go, where did that come from? Yeah, sometimes it does come from the internet, but it's that piece where you just overflow with wanting to know, to tell somebody something you've just learned. It is natural as human beings to want to share, to get to be exuberant, and to maybe find other people who are excited about the thing as we are. So we are going to take a moment to share amongst ourselves. This might be with the person sitting behind you. This might be wandering around the sanctuary. You can do this with several different people. Share one thing that people might not know about you unless you tell them. It could be something you're fascinated by, that time you were on The Price is Right, how your left foot is half a size bigger than your right foot. Just let you know, keep it child-friendly and keep it pretty short. So time to share amongst each other. So I'm going to invite you to get going, and when you hear my voice, try to come back to the room. Go for it. Okay, if we can come back to center. I hope that gave us a little bit more that we know about ourselves, about each other. And yeah, I really should have given you more notice. I myself took, a few hours to think about what I would share. So, as the week continues, maybe on the Emerson Conversation Facebook group, you could have a little thread about your fun facts. Other opportunities for sharing throughout this service. Now, it's time for our offering, Miss Mary.
Giving out of what is our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community and as a way to live out our shared values. Please give with a generous heart to support our January Share the Plate recipient, U-Bar-U. U-Bar-U, the Texas Hill Country UU Camp and Retreat Center, must replace its World War II era nearly depleted well to secure mandated long-term public water access and thereby remain open. It will also increase conservation measures and possibly expand housing for future generations of friends and visitors. The remaining 25% of our offering goes to our ongoing commitment to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, feeding Houston's seniors. We have 3 ways to give. You can go to our webpage for online giving, or you can put your offering in our baskets here, and there, or mail a check to the church.
Please find a comfortable place to be. Whether laying out on the floor or in the pew or sitting upright. Place your feet or some other part of your body on the floor if you can and if you will, so that you might feel grounded, more connected to the earth, which nourishes and sustains us all. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a deep breath in. As together we enter into a time of meditation followed by silence. With these words from David Blanchard. On sabbatical in East Africa, I heard a story of a people who believe that we are each created with our own song. Their tradition as a community is to honor that song by singing it as a welcome when a child is born, as comfort when the child is ill, in celebration when the child marries, and in affirmation and love when death comes. Most of us were not welcomed into the world in that way. Few of us seem to know our song. It takes a while for many of us to figure out which is our song and which is the song that others would like us to sing. Some of us are slow learners. I heard my song not necessarily from doing extraordinary things in exotic places, but also from doing some pretty ordinary things in some routine places. For every phrase I heard climbing Kilimanjaro, I learned another in a chair in a therapist's office. For every measure I heard in the silence of a retreat, I heard another laughing with my girls. For every note I heard in the wind on the beach at Lamu, I gleaned more from spending time with a dying friend as her children sang her song back to her. What came to astound me was not that the song appeared, but that it was always there. I figured that the only way I could have known it for my own was if I had heard it before memory went to work making sense and order of the mystery of our beginning. Our songs sing back to us something of our essence, something of our truth, something of our uniqueness. When our songs are sung back to us, it is not about approval, but about recognizing our being and our belonging in the human family. It is good to know our songs by heart for those lonely times when the world is not singing back to us. That's usually a good time to start humming to yourself, that song that is most your own. They can be heard as songs of love or of longing, songs of encouragement or of comfort, songs of struggle or of security. But most of all, they are the songs of life, giving testimony to what has been giving praise for all we're given, giving hope for all we strive for, giving voice to the great mystery that carries each of us in and out of this world. Now, let us enter into the silence together and listen for our songs. May your song resound in your heart for always. Amen, and blessed be. So Katie, you and I have been talking a lot about hobbies recently. New hobbies we've started, hobbies we've had for a long time, hobbies we feel we're good at, and hobbies we feel we're not so good at, but do anyway. Would you be willing to share with us some of those that you keep?
Yeah, so I've always been in the kitchen, trying out new recipes, figuring out how to do things that I couldn't do before. And one of the reasons that's like a natural thing for me, other than, food is delicious, is it turns out that while I can be a giant recovering perfectionist, almost always, even if you mess up the recipe a little, it's still going to taste good. It's still going to feed the family. A couple of years ago, I decided that an ugly pie crust is still going to hold a good filling. And once I did that, it was like, oh, okay, I can make a quiche every week. I can use up the fruit in the house in a pie. Let's keep going. I made tortillas last week, and they were so far from circles. But we still had tacos on Tuesday, so it was okay. And then as the years went by, my kids started talking about hobbies. Specifically, when we talked about what do they want to do when they grow up, they said, well, we want the kind of jobs where we still have time for our hobbies. And that hit me. Like, what do I actually take time for? And so one of the things I decided to add in was making lumpy scarves. I have a little knitting loom, and over the past, 6 or 7 months, I've been making scarves for people I love. And they're never going to be perfect, but they're colors that I love. They're really soft yarn, and it gives me something to do with my hands and to give people a little something that keeps them warm. And then there's one more. This isn't really a hobby, but the thing that hit me is, what do I do just for the joy of it? So I wanted to tell you this story. In October, my colleagues, we all got together for our professional conference for the first time in 3 years, right? And one of those organic things that just kind of happened was late one night, probably let's say 10:30, we took over the hotel lobby from just playing card games to an impromptu karaoke of The Little Mermaid's Part of Your World. Imagine 15 or more religious educators, and let me point out to you that about half of religious educators come from a theater background, so it was pretty dramatic. Singing joyfully at the top of our lungs. Did we hit all the right notes? Oh, no way. Were we smiling so hard that our cheeks hurt? You better believe it. So those are a couple of things that come to mind for me. How about you?
Well, I just wanted to share, this is a little bit of show and tell while we're here. This is a scarf that Katie made for me for Christmas. I love the colors. They are the perfect colors for me. And when I look at it, it makes me think about how much you must pay attention to me and who I am and how I'm really seen, because you knew what colors to choose. And because being an interim means I move around and say goodbye a lot, this is something I can take with me, and I will always remember Katie, and I will remember my time at Emerson. So it's a very precious gift for me. So I also have some hobbies that I keep. I like to be kind of artsy and craftsy, and I also feel like I'm not very good at it. And sometimes it takes me a little bit of extra effort to get over that psychological hump, especially when it comes to giving gifts for other people. And I have that inner doubt of wondering whether it is good enough to give as a gift, or if it's something I should just be doing for the joy of it for myself. So I brought one thing that I've done recently. It's not finished yet. Micah gave me this mandala for Christmas, and I've been busy painting it. And it's a bit of a spiritual practice as I choose the colors and focus on this, and also think about Micah and the love that he has for me, that he chose something that he knew I would really love. I also spent some time making gift tags for presents this Christmas. I found blank wooden shapes that I could use my paint markers on, and made gift tags for people with their names on it. And now, and Micah suggested a secondary purpose for this. We're going to save from making using paper tags and all of that, because these are tags that we're going to save every year and keep on using, and will hopefully be a special memory for the future. So I bet that there are a bunch of people here sitting in this congregation that have hobbies as well. And I wonder if any of you would be willing to share with us what it is that you do for a hobby. Katie has a microphone if you feel like you want to come up here to the microphone, or if you prefer the microphone to come to you, you could just raise your hand and wave it.
Okay, well, the reason I want to share my hobby is because of how it began. I am a quilter, and I have been a quilter a very long time, because when my older sisters were getting to be the age to learn to sew, I don't know, 8, 12, something, the pair of them, well, I was much younger and too little to, of course, run the sewing machine or to handle the scissors, But if you know me well, you cannot cross me. I mean, usually I'm very easygoing, and then I'm not. And I wasn't. So I got to cut out and clipped my finger, and I cut out little squares. We did, it's called 9-patch, where you have 5 that match and 4 that are matched, but they're different. And so we all made squares. Now, I was too little to run the sewing machine. I could not, it was a treadle. If you know what that is, it's done by hand, okay. But I could not reach the pedals, so I would sit on my mother's lap and I sewed my squares. And eventually, I ended up with all of the squares. All of my sister's squares that they made ended up in a quilt that I took to my first marriage. So that I made a quilt then. We tied it with crochet thread. Over the years, I've made, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds. I have tried selling them, but I want to make what I want to make, and that is not necessarily what people want to buy. Now, if you've been to the auction this last year, especially, I had a nice one there, and a baby one. So if you think back, it was a red dog, little one. Anyway, it has evolved. I went from using cardboard squares to trace the shapes to now I actually have the roll. I actually sew, I mean, I don't tie anything anymore. I use the sewing machine. I want one of those nice fancy machines that do the quilting. If you've noticed the quilt upstairs, I want the machine that did that, you know. But I don't have that, but I'm getting there. Anyway, I make quilts. I make 6 or 7 a year. I give them away. I don't know. Anyway, that's my hobby. It's like breathing. I have to.
It's going to be choir sharing hour.
I like to research poisonous plants.
Watch out.
I have so many hobbies, I wonder how I ever had time to have a job. You all know I play music. I'm also an avid gardener or voracious reader. I like to crochet, and I make balloon animals.
What is this bringing up for y'all? Feel free to come forward, or you can make me run around. Wow, you guys have no hobbies? So you're free to come up and volunteer more at the church, right? Okay, I'm Joy McKay. Okay, that was a little snarky. I'm sorry.
I'm a cross stitcher, and I started out with little bitty things, and then I love them big and I love them hard. And when the pandemic started, I ordered a kit to do a autumn fairy who was about like this and totally covering a canvas in linen. So you go over 2 little tiny stitches. It took for my granddaughter, who is 20 and an October baby. And it took me, that's what I did through the entire pandemic. I sat and I cross-stitched. It took me the entire time, even working a little bit every day, but I am so proud of my masterpiece. Now I'm starting a fractal cross-stitch for my grandson, which is a huge canvas again on a black background, which is almost, if I'm able to see at the end of it, it'll be amazing. But that's what I like to do.
Thank you, Kay. I am heading back to Mike Hilgart.
One of my hobbies is as a game designer. And I've always enjoyed playing games, and then I got into designing games, and I've designed a number of games for our 4 granddaughters. They love the haunted house game that I designed for them, so they always ask to play that. And I've designed a beanbag toss game where you can play a version of baseball and football and other games. And some other games, I even have a game agent who hasn't sold any of my good games yet, but hopefully someday.
Okay, we got Mary Evelyn and then Michael.
This morning, I tried on 3 different necklaces that were red, black, or red and black that I have made. I didn't like any of them.
They just didn't go with a neckline on that outfit. You like them fine. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, so I'll build off of Mike's comment about game design. There's the oldest continuously played board game in the world. I mean, is called Go, G-O. It dates from about 3,000 years ago in China, and so I'm trying to get better at Go.
You go, Michael. Passing it to Mim Frater.
Well, as I was sharing earlier, my parents met through music when they were teenagers, and my father had a beautiful tenor voice, but his job simply took over his life, and in the small town where they lived, no one even knew that he had such a beautiful voice. But I have always had one foot in the music world and one foot in the teaching world. So I've had music as a part of my life, and I've always been sort of a part-time musician, so that's been a big part of my life.
Heading to Elsbeth in the back.
I also play Go, and I like to play the piano as well, and I like to learn languages.
Okay, I'm heading over to Bonnie Homeyer. Thank y'all for making sure I get my active steps in for the hour.
I like stitching, almost anything. I like cross stitch, I like needlepoint, I like quilting, I like almost anything. And all of you stitchers that are out there and don't come to Wednesdays, you're missing a great, great opportunity to solve the problems of the world while you're doing your hobby. I also enjoy gardening. I also enjoy reading. And for you people who play Go, you've got to read tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Go is a big part of that. So, enjoy.
The Stitchers meet around 11 o'clock every Wednesday in room 208 upstairs. Anybody else? Oh, look at me, heading all the way back to Ed Frater. Having heard Mim, he said, I have a thought of my own. We love it when people cross-pollinate.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do this. There's about 3 things that I really like to do. I like to play bridge. I like to play music, and what is the other thing? Music, bridge, and I like to snow ski. The one problem I've got with all 3 of these sports is I just can't do them well enough.
And now Ellen.
I have an unusual hobby, the Spanish language. I always wanted to be fluent in a foreign language, so obviously I picked Spanish about 30 years ago. The fun part of the hobby is there's a whole world out there of Hispanic culture and movie stars and famous authors, etc., that we in the Anglo world don't know anything about. So it's a very fun process of discovery.
Process of discovery, I like that. I'm going to tie us up here because I know that there's cake after the service. And I'm just going to offer this up. If anybody else now has The Little Mermaid in their head, I have the lyrics if we want to go sing under the magnolia tree after the service.
Okay. And we have a reading from Mary.
This reading is Even This Is Enough by Vanessa Southern. So much undone, so much to do, so much to heal in us and the world. So much to acquire: a meal, a healthy body, a fit one, a lover, a job, a better job. Proof we have and are enough, just around the corner of now. And up against it, the reality of all that falls short and the limits of today. We honor the limits. If your body won't do what it used to, for right now, let it be enough. If your mind won't stop racing or can't think of the word, let it be enough. If you are here utterly alone and in despair, be all that here with us. If today you cannot sing because your throat hurts or you don't have the heart for music, be silent. When the offering plate goes around, if you don't have money to give or the heart to give, let it pass. The world won't stop spinning on her axis if you don't rise to all occasions today. Love won't cease to flow in your direction. Your heart won't stop beating. All hope won't be lost. You are part of the plan for this world's salvation. Of that I have no doubt. The world needs its oceans of people striving to be good, to carry us to the shores of hope and wash fear from the beachheads and cleanse all wounds so they can heal. But oceans are big, and I am sure there are parts that don't feel up to the task of the whole some days. Rest if you must, then, like the swimmer lying on her back who floats, or the hawk carried on cushions of air. Rest in pews made to hold weary lives, in space carved out for the doing of nothing much but being. Perhaps then you will feel in your bones, in your weary heart, the aching, healing sense that this is enough. Even this, that we are enough. You are enough. Enough. For these and all the meditations of our hearts unspoken in this hour, I say, Amen.
I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story that comes from my time in seminary, one that's a little embarrassing, to tell you the truth. But first, I want to explain what being in seminary was like. It was stressful, majorly stressful. It was a 3 or 4 year full-time graduate degree with a lot of additional requirements for going through the fellowshipping process in addition to the academic degree. So in my second year, I spent half of my week in Connecticut and half of my week in Massachusetts. In addition to my full load of courses in my seminary right outside the city of Boston, I also was doing my clinical pastoral education in a hospital in Connecticut and serving as an interim part-time director of religious education at a church in Dorchester, part of the city of Boston. So I literally, every 3.5 days, moved from Connecticut to Massachusetts and back and forth, a 2.5-hour journey each way. The hardest part of this, in some ways, was keeping track of my shoes. I could bring the right clothes back and forth, but then to make sure I had the right shoes to match the right clothes in the right state, it was stressful. And then came a time when we had this special day-long workshop happening at the church in Boston, where we had some outside consultants coming in to work with the Religious Education Council and do some planning with that group of folks. And the city of Boston has a lot of traffic, and like I said, I was under a lot of stress, very busy, and I was in charge of getting the food for the day, and there were issues at the grocery store, and I was just even more stressed out than I normally was. So I did what I was taught to do and engaged in my spiritual practice efficiently while driving my car in Boston. And what I did was I sang the meditation on breathing. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. I was going on several minutes doing this, just not stopping, because I needed it so much, over and over and over again. When I breathe in peace, when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. And it was just starting to help when all of a sudden a car cut me off and I started swearing at the car. And then I started laughing because I was literally singing, when I breathe out love, right before I started swearing at the car that had just cut me off. Well, my spiritual practice that day didn't work in the way it was intended to, but I wound up laughing so hard at myself about what I had just done, it actually did break the hold the stress had on me and lightened my mood, and I had a much better day after that. So I want to talk a little bit about why my chosen spiritual practice that day was a singing meditation. A lot of times people say that according to our personalities, and this goes with the Enneagram, if you're familiar with that model of personality paradigm, but others as well, that we tend to live in either our minds, our hearts, or our bodies. The different people, different personalities sort of naturally go to one of those areas: mind, heart, body. For me, it's the mind. I can get really stuck in my mind and turn into the absent-minded professor, not paying attention to anything else, just sort of percolating in my mind, especially if I'm getting ready for worship or religious education class or something like that. And I also spend a good amount of time in my heart. I feel things easily and and tend to be pretty empathic with people and compassionate. So my heart is strong too, but not like my mind, where I can really just, it's not good. I can get so lost in my mind. Where I spend the least amount of time is in my body. So what I learned in seminary was that what I needed was more balance. So instead of engaging a spiritual practice that got at my heart or got me in my head too much, I chose to do only embodied spiritual practices. Whether it meant I was using my throat and my mouth to sing, whether I was walking a labyrinth to meditate, whether I was reading Hafiz and then either drawing or writing a poem after the day's verses, or doing jigsaw puzzles to literally empty my mind so that I could focus only on colors and shapes and let all else go. This way, I found that my spiritual practice, by focusing on my body, could serve as a counterweight to my being too much in my head. It helped me restore balance. It could help me find my center. It's pretty hard to find my center, for anyone to find their center if they're feeling off balance, right? So for me, finding balance among mind, heart, and body was what really works and worked to help me find my center. Today we're focusing on hobbies. Some of you have shared, some of you haven't. I'm sure you all have some kind of interest outside of your job or your schooling or whatever it is that you're doing. And I hope that I want to encourage you to continue sharing after the service is over today, or in the chat on Zoom social hour or YouTube or whatever it is where you're experiencing this service. So today what I want to do is encourage you to come up with your own answers to some questions I'm going to ask you. So I'm not going to preach at you. I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm sharing what my experience has been with finding my center. And I'm going to ask you some questions and ask you to answer them for yourselves. And hopefully you'll also share with each other or with your families or with your friends later on. It's a bunch of questions, so I'll go slow. What is the difference between a hobby and a spiritual practice? What is the difference between a hobby and a spiritual practice? Is your hobby also a spiritual practice? Is your hobby, or are your hobbies also a spiritual practice? If it is not, or if they are not, would you like them to be a spiritual practice? Is there some small way you can tweak your hobby or adapt your hobby so that it can be deepened into a spiritual practice? What is the goal of keeping a spiritual practice? Why do we keep spiritual practices? Why are they important? Or why don't we keep them? And what keeps us from engaging with them if we don't? And how do we even define spiritual practice? Is it a narrow definition, a broad definition? Is it something that only theists, people who believe in God, keep? Can atheists have a spiritual practice? Can you, in whatever your theological or philosophical leaning is, however you see and understand the meaning of life, have a spiritual practice? I'm not giving you those answers because as a community of faith, what we do is we construct or form our faith together in relationship with each other by asking each other questions and considering implications and meanings and defining and redefining our theology or our philosophy or our faith together. We don't do this alone. The purpose of us engaging with each other in constructing or forming our faith is not to come to a universal definition or creed or dogma or statement of faith, but to support and encourage each other in the working through of our questions and our doubts, and in the process of coming up with our own answers. As we prepare to close today, may you find your center, not just within yourselves as individuals, but also in the formation of this beloved community of faith. Amen, and blessed be. Now, let us rise either in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, which is number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, in the Teal hymnal.
May our
As we leave this community of the Spirit, may we remember the difficult lesson that each day offers more things than we can do. May we do what needs to be done, postpone what does not, and be at peace with what we can be and do. Therefore, may we learn to separate that which matters most and that which matters least of all.
Having found stillness,
may we share peace.
Having received connection,
may we reach out to others.
Having heard the call of our deepest self,
may we live in greater alignment.
Having returned to our center,
may we expand the circle of love.
Amen and blessed be. Today, we will be having social time both here and on the Zoom. We are also having a congregational annual meeting at 12:30, and I understand there are substantial refreshments to help you power through so that you can go to the meeting not hangry, which would be a bad thing. The lunch bunch, therefore, will be resuming next week. We're all staying here for a social hour and for the annual meeting. And I also want to encourage everyone to stay, who is in person anyway, to stay for social time because we have a special celebration coming up. Our beloved business administrator, is she in here? Where is she? Maybe she's hiding out in the lobby already. Of 18 years, will be retiring at the end of the month, so we want to give her a wonderful, great big send-off and share how immensely grateful we are for her many, many years of service. That's for Karen Van Horn. And now for the postlude.